Hello, welcome to episode 2 of Musical Origin Stories, a podcast where I interview people involved in music. My name is Kyle Loafman. I am the host of this series, and today I'm joined by Roland Ventura, who is a middle school band director in Georgia. One of my favorite things from this interview was Roland talking about instilling confidence in your students. It was really insightful, and I hope you'll stay tuned to listen for it. But otherwise, thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoy this as much as I did. So, thank you. What got you started in music in the first place?
I started in sixth grade. Wanted to play the clarinet. I wanted to play an instrument. Didn't know what it was. Did just wanted to be part of the band. Wanted to play the instrument that kind of went like this.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't sure exactly what that was. Just was a slide, and I thought it looked cool. And my band director, who was Mr. Browder, who has since passed many years ago, did the same thing that I do with the kids now. And he checked out my hands, my lips, my teeth, physical attributes. And he started thinking about, maybe you should play clarinet. And then that's it. I got hooked. And then I joined, of course, a bunch of my close friends, my best friend, who I still have now. We joined band together in sixth grade, man. So that was 40 years ago,
Wow.
Yeah. And we started playing clarinet together. We went to junior high together. We had an outstanding junior high director who I still keep in touch with. Saw him in Midwest 2 years ago. My junior high band director. And so, he was very, very great band director. And then I went to high school. We were part of the marching band. Had another great, outstanding rookie, brand new year with us. He was 22 years old when he came to us.
Wow.
And we kind of grew with him as he went through. And he influenced me into becoming, a band director, a musician at first. And then I had a very influential clarinet instructor who was like a dad to me. In fact, it was Mr. Assertion, Al Assertion at first, and Mr. Assertion this, yes sir, yes sir, yes sir, and eventually become Uncle Al. And Uncle Al helped to mold me. And then when I knew I didn't want to go to college at first after high school. So I was thinking, maybe I should join the military. And at first, this is where I started thinking, maybe I don't want to be a musician. And when I first signed up as in the Army, my first contract was going to be as an M1 tank crewman driver. And I was going to go drive tanks,
Wow.
be a tank crewman and do all this. And then my recruiter said, aren't you in the band? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, but aren't you like a leader in the band? I was like, yeah, I'm drum major and stuff like that. And, I was like, yeah, but I don't know if I want to do it. And then he goes, but if you join the band, then we can give you more rank and more money for college. You have to serve a little bit more time and all this. And then I brought that back to Uncle Al, my instructor, who was one of the lead, just the Army, Navy instructor, clarinet instructor for the Armed Forces School of Music while he was in the Navy. And probably one of the best musicians to ever come out of the military. And so he helped me prepare for that. And then that's it. Once I joined as an Army musician, I went through that. Well, actually, not quite true. When I went to college, I didn't think I wanted to be a musician anymore again. And joined college as a business major. Was going to get a business administration degree.
Wow.
At Troy University, or Troy State at the time. And I went to college because I was putting myself through college. I was a 22-year-old freshman. Had just finished my military service and was in the military, and went to all my classes. Did not skip class because I knew I was paying for it. So went to every business class and failed every single business class I was in, and was trying my best to do the right thing, and actually got suspended from school. And when I got suspended from school because my grades were so low, it was a 1.8.
Wow.
Yeah, it was low, man, because I could not get the business part. My gen eds were fine.
Yeah.
The business part, I just couldn't figure out. Macroeconomics, statistics, all of that stuff. I had a hard time with it. Took college algebra probably 5 times,
Wow.
So had a hard time with it. And then I went to, again, my band director, who was Dr. Long, probably the greatest man, one of the greatest men I've ever met in my life, and told him, if you help me get back into school, I'll change my major to music education and become a band director. And that was it. He helped me change and had a few choice words for me. Then make sure he put me on the right line, right path for music education, and that's it. I was a music minor, but I was not a music education major. So I had taken some music classes, but then after that, my next quarter, because we were in quarters back then, my next quarter I got a 4.0 and straight A's, and that was my clue right there. This is what you're supposed to do, and I have not looked back since. I can't imagine doing something now.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Wow.
And then, because I know you were also involved with Kappa Kappa Psi at the time too,
Yeah.
or how did you get involved with that?
Kappa Kappa Psi was actually, when I first went to Troy. Again, I had just finished my military service, so I was a 22-year-old freshman, putting myself through college. Knew when I went to Troy, I probably knew 2 people there, and we went to a rush party for everybody. It was on the 5 music organizations in the band at Troy. It was we have a small campus, main campus. There was maybe 5,000 students on campus, maybe. But our band was 300 strong. So, I mean, really strong program. So we had, both Phi Mu Alpha, SAI, CMNC, KK Psi, and TBS. And all of them were there in the band room doing a little rush party for everybody, just a, organization party to find out who people were. And I was actually hanging out with the Phi Mu Alpha guys and just getting to know them, because I knew I was a music fraternity, but I kept on looking over at the Kappa Kappa Psi guys, and just seeing the brotherhood that they had. And then I just started looking around, just kind of asking questions between the 2 organizations, what their purposes were. And I was already, like I said, older than most freshmen. I wasn't just coming from high school. I had already served my time in the military, and then realized how much Kappa Kappa Psi did as a service fraternity. They were not a social fraternity. They promoted music, but they had a goal. And then I figured out, and then I started looking around the band and realized that all the leaders in the band, from the drum major, transportation officer, the band didn't do anything without Kappa Kappa Psi. And then that's when I was like, you know what, I think I'm gonna do that. And also when I was 22, I also became a Freemason. Between the time before I went to college, after I got out of the military, and before I went to college, my father is a Mason, and I started going to lodge with him, and I went into the Freemasonry and became a Master Mason. So that, with the service orientation of that, of being a Freemason, and then seeing Kappa Kappa Psi, and then doing some research and stuff like that, and finding out more and more about their role at Troy State. That's when I chose them, and they chose me. And it was hard. I mean, but it was it was cool, because back in the day, because I pledged fall of '92, a long time ago. So back in the day, pledging, you were a pledge. It was hard, and it's some true pledging. Then that I know we're a lot more politically correct now, which is what things should have become. But yeah, there was times that it was rough, and there was times where you had to think about what you're doing. But Kappa Kappa Psi pretty much engulfed me while I was at Troy, and eventually became vice president, became transportation officer of the band, vice president of the marching band, or the band, president of Kappa Kappa Psi. So it just, it just really engulfed me. And then even my friends now, my closest friends are all KK Psi brothers, whether they're teachers, band directors, or whatnot. But they're all my closest friends are my brothers from then.
Cool. Very cool. So I guess that's like one of the would you say that's like one of the biggest effects Kappa Kappa Psi has had on you? Just all the friends and really close friends you've gathered since then? Or,
Yeah, it's beyond just, the friends. We truly are brothers.
yeah.
We truly are brothers. They're there for me. They're, in fact, they're my kids, grandfathers, godfathers,
Mm,
and they're part of that. They know my family. They know my wife. They were there when my wife and I started dating. They're there both of my kids' births. But not just that. I mean, the responsibility we had at Troy at the time, we had no grad assistants, none.
mm,
There wasn't even really a grad assistant program there. Um, and so we did it all as undergrads. So the transportation officer was an undergrad, a KKSI brother, and an undergrad. But when Dr. Long said, let's go, you had to move 300 people at the snap of a finger. He's like, let's go. And we're done. We would move that band, you know.
mm,
So you're talking about 12 buses and 2 trucks and, all that other stuff. And you had to coordinate it all.
yeah.
When he said, like when we took a trip to New Orleans or whatever, he's like, get the hotels. And we did everything that a grad assistant should do,
Wow.
except we were all undergrads. Yeah, and we did all of it,
Mm-hmm.
and then when it came to the symphony band tour, he would tell us where he wanted to stop. This is way before GPS, so we would have to map
Mm,
out all the routes, make
wow.
sure all the buses knew where they're going. We had to do all the itineraries, everything. We had to get all the hotels. We had the hotel keys, rooms, food, meals for the entire band. Everything. That was our responsibility, and that taught me more. Being the logistics, coordinator of a band that
Mm,
big. When you finally start teaching, and you teach, say, at a high school, and if you go to a high school and you have a marching band, you have that stuff. That stuff is it's you learn it. I learned it in college. I didn't have to learn it by screwing up a high
right.
school itinerary, and messing up some high school kids.
Mm,
All that stuff. I knew what to look out for. We knew the landmines already because we were taught through KKSI and through Dr. Long entrusting us, even as undergrads, to do
right.
that stuff. So it was pretty cool. That was,
Yeah.
yeah, immeasurable. We couldn't learn that stuff, on our own like that, but we learned it through
Right.
KK, helping each other out and having a fraternity help us do everything together. So yeah, it was very, very strong. I'm not sure. I know things have changed since Troy and all this stuff, since we left Troy, and college in general. And I
Right.
know they have at least 4 grad assistants now that do all that,
Mm,
that we did as undergrads. So there's a lot of responsibility for us. We just didn't
yeah.
realize what we did because we just did it because the man told us to. So we
Hmm.
did.
Yeah, that's
hmm
true.
hmm
And then how'd you get into becoming a middle school band director?
when I first started, I started in South Effingham High School, and I was actually the assistant at both the middle school and the high school.
Mm,
And then eventually the next year, I was supposed to be just the assistant at the high school, but all 4 of us, there were 4 directors, 2 at the high school, 2 at the middle school. We all did both.
mm,
So really, I always taught middle school and high school. Through South Effingham, I stayed there for 2 years, and then I went to Cairo High School, where again I taught 6 through 12 at 3 different schools: Cairo High School, Washington Middle School, and Shiver Elementary. So I taught at 3 different schools every day. Um, and then I stayed there for 3 years, and then eventually that was so the 6th year of my teaching. I finally I went to Virginia Beach, Virginia, which is where I'm from, and I became a high school director at Salem High School. Stayed there for 5 years and was teaching just high school, a very, very highly competitive high school.
mm,
Uh, we did the tournament of bands circuit, sort of like the northeastern part of like BOA.
okay.
Um, yeah, so it was sort of like that. It's TOB. So we did that and did it well. And then we opened up an
Cool.
academy of fine arts at the same school. And that's
Wow.
when I started becoming more of an administrator and an orchestra teacher. And I no longer did the marching band because my assistant took it over. and because I was just so busy with the academy. And so I became academy director. And after a while, I just realized I wanted to just teach kids how to play their instrument, how to fall in love with band.
Yeah.
And then was looking to leave the high school and go to a good middle school. And Rudy Gilbert, who was the Norcross band director at the time, in 06, he and I started talking, and we had worked together at South Effingham when we first started teaching together. We were both young and dumb when we were both, so we'd known each other for a long time. And he was a Norcross director, and Pickneyville feeds into Norcross. And he knew that middle school director was thinking about leaving. And I said, well, then I'm interested, And we started talking. I came down, talked to the principal and all that. And I was very blessed to take over that program in 07. And have been there since, man.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Now with the last year, it's been, I mean, for most people and partly for you, for the last year, it's been quite a year. And for you in particular, last fall, you had particular struggles that prevented you from teaching.
Yeah.
And with all of that has happened with because you had surgery, which basically prevented you from teaching that last fall. From that, and also the stuff that's happened within this year, how's that kind of influenced your teaching or what you do as a musician?
It's been hard. Last fall, I missed 16 weeks of school. So pretty much the first school. In fact, I was in school for the first week of school plus 1 day, the Monday after. So the first week of school with the kids plus 1 day. And then that next Tuesday, I went to a doctor and found out that I had to have a quadruple bypass surgery. And so it was that sudden. And that was it. He literally looked at me, go, you're out. And I was like, what do you mean? I'm a teacher. I can't be out. And he goes, no, you're. And that's when I had to start, scrambling, with your help and with a bunch of other people's help. I'm just scrambling just to see what's going to happen with the program. I couldn't we have over probably 340 kids in the program. I couldn't let those kids down, and I'm like, come on, I had to do something. And we were scrambling to find people, and ended up between your help and other people, it took, from what I heard, it took up to like 7 people to take the reins over, and keep the train on the rails, from and keep it moving. Man, thank God, God bless me with a lot of good friends and administration, and it helped. But that I came back finally in January. And then we were out. COVID started in March 14-ish, around there, mid-March.
Something like that. Yeah.
So last school year, I literally was in school for 10 weeks. And that's it.
Wow.
I taught school for 10 weeks. So that means the 6th graders didn't know who I was. My 7th graders barely knew who I was because they only had me for 1 year the year before. And then we were out. We're done, and then we come back to school and doing what we're doing now. And it's been interesting. I mean, it's hard. It's very difficult doing what we're doing, but at the same time, we're starting to find a groove, with the kids, and starting to find funner things that are more fun to do than just doing scales and basics and theory and stuff like that. We're trying to find out ways to perform. Last week, Gwinnett County finally told us that what our plans are for next semester, which is hybrid. So we'll stay the way we are. So right there, that nullified any performances for the rest of the school year. Any true performance. We'll do something that's fun, probably. Probably something like, maybe some Christmas caroling and stuff like that. In smaller ensembles, but as a true, like, say, a concert with spring concert, LGBE, we're invited back to the Music for All Southeast Regional concert festival, and at Georgia State, we were invited back to that in March. That's going to be no go. because we were not allowed to quote unquote rehearse.
Yeah.
If they do rehearse, we have to find a bigger place than my band room because, as you know, my band room's pretty small.
Yeah.
You know, and so I'd have to move my band to like the gym or the cafeteria, and the kids have to be volunteer basis. So it would be very difficult to plan a high level performance, right now during
Yeah.
during this, because you could prepare for whatever, and the day before, your half your section could get quarantined, and that's the
That's
end of
true.
that. So how do you prepare for something like that?
Hmm.
So it's been difficult, but at
Yeah.
the same time, I try to stay a strong cheerleader for my kids and
Yeah.
keep them up, because what they're going through is not easy either.
Of
I
course.
have a student teacher right now, and he's going through stuff, and teach, and I'm trying to teach him the best I can and show him the best way that we can overcome this and adapt. Um,
Hmm.
but at the same time, you got to think about what these kids are going through. This is
Yeah.
crazy, man. This is crazy for these kids to be responsible for what they're doing. Um, I'm all about ownership, and I'm all about making the kids have ownership. But sometimes it's a little bit much, and some of these
Hmm.
kids are struggling, and it's hard. I understand, but what do we
Yeah.
do? We got to keep people safe. I'd rather them struggle this year and be safe and alive, you know, literally alive and not get sick, than for them than for us to do foolish mistakes for everybody and put everybody back into school.
Yep.
Uh, we're all taking precautions. You imagine band's the only class where they take off their masks,
Yeah.
because and I just ordered the musicians mask that have the Velcro, in the middle, so we can open it up.
Okay.
Yeah, we hopefully we'll get that this week for our in-person kids, so that their masks will at least stay over their nose, and the mouthpiece
Hmm.
will side. Um, hopefully that'll work.
Hmm.
We've got
Yeah.
PPE on the instruments. I stay behind. I made a little. My principal calls it a COVID fort. You
Oh.
know, I made a little barrier using clear shower curtains. You know,
Oh. Okay.
yeah, right in front of the whiteboard. You remember my whiteboard, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so my whiteboard, I have my computer stand there, an iPad, the screen behind me, and then I've got this little COVID fort that I built around me, because I've got to take care of myself, because I'm still an at-risk patient.
Hmm.
If I catch COVID could really hurt me, if
Wow.
I'm not careful. Yeah, so I wear I wear a microphone inside of my mask so the kids can hear me, and then I teach the digital kids on my computer. At the same time, I'm teaching my kids who are in the roomies. We call them roomies and zoomies. So I teach my zoomies on the computer. I teach my roomies while they're there. And
Yeah.
we do synchronous learning every day, not asynchronous learning. We do synchronous learning every day with these
Wow.
kids. Yeah, and it's been tough. It's been tough, but we got to do what's right for the kids. We got to make sure that
Yeah.
they have some sense of normalcy when they get to my band room, and some sense of normalcy and routine. They have to have a routine. You got to create routines for the kids,
Hmm.
um, structure, so that they get once they come in, they know what's going to happen in the band. They know how we're going to warm up. They know how we're going to sign into class. They
Yeah.
know what we're going to do. And I don't make it hard. I mean, literally, most of my assignments are, if you do it, you get 100. And they're easy assignments.
Nice.
Just to make sure that the kids know that I'm not trying to stress them out. You know,
Yeah.
we're going to keep on playing and having a good time, and band still needs to be. You still need to spell band FUN.
Hmm.
Which is what I believe in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
Hmm.
How do you manage between the zoomies and the roomies?
But between the two of them,
Yeah,
that
like
can
teaching them at the same time.
that can be tough. That can be tough. Whenever a Zoomie needs to play, like say they're like I'm saying, I'll call like one of the kids who are online, and I'll say, I need you to play this for me. I put I share that screen. I mean, I share their picture up on the big screen. behind me, which is so that the roomies can see it too. Obviously, everybody on the Zoom can see it because they're on a gallery view, or they can see it on the speaker view. But
Right.
the roomies don't, so they see it too. So it's sort of like that person's in the room, and that person will play, that little whatever we're doing. So right now we're doing that. That would be like if I needed them to play. So say my eighth graders right now are preparing the GMEA etude for the district band audition,
Right.
and like my oboe player, play your section A that I've sectioned off the solos, the etudes, and I'm like, play section A, and so she plays it. So it's like playing in the room, but she's in our house, but everybody can hear her. The roomies can hear her, the Zoomies can see her, everybody can see and hear her what she's doing. The technology part that has been kind of tough. Like sometimes, especially the way we do it, I mean, we'll max out the microphone. So all of a sudden, we can't hear anything. So a lot of times we'll test that. I bought an external microphone for the band room, so it doesn't max out as much. But if my student teacher is teaching the class, I'll go in my office and I'll log in as a Zoomie, and then if it starts to cancel out and we max out the microphone, or we can't see him in the frame, we don't, whatever, then at least I can check it and I know what the kids are hearing at home, and then we can adjust it. So some things you just have to think about, like we can't work on dynamics. I mean,
that's true.
There's no way we can work on dynamics. I'm working on tone the best way I can, the most difficult thing that has been so far. Imagine telling a sixth grade little tiny clarinet player to move her pinky or her finger, her ring finger her right ring finger in by 0.5 centimeter and try to cover that hole. And she's at home. And you're trying to tell her what to do. And that child is at the house,
Yeah.
Or put your instrument together. Tell her to line up a bridge key. What's that?
Oh yeah, that's true.
Telling people how to put their reeds on, without touch. And then even in my roomies in the room, I don't go on the other side of that barrier. I stay in my COVID fort, and if we do go on the other side, of course, we're wearing a mask. How do you explain use an embouchure when you're wearing a mask?
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
So
we use a lot of videos. I'll take, if I'm behind the fort, I'll take off my mask and get close to the computer screen, the computer camera, and I'll do this. But if you can't actually tell a kid and like touch their chin and tell them to pull the muscles to the corners, try to explain an embouchure in a paragraph. That's what we're doing. Explain what you do as a tuba player to a tuba player, and just tell them how to hold it in words only.
Yeah.
So if you think about that, it's like, oh my God, that's what we're trying to do. That's what we're trying to do. That's been a challenge, because that you try to think of all the scenarios on how to put a saxophone on, and I guarantee you there's going to be one kid that's going to figure out something you did not think about.
That's true.
Just to put the neck strap on the right way.
Yeah.
And they're at home, and you're trying to make them do it the right way. By just telling them what to do. You can't touch them.
I hadn't thought about the woodwind side of teaching over Zoom, but wow. Yeah.
I mean, you know how hard it is to describe a flute embouchure?
Oh yeah.
A flute embouchure, to try to blow across that hole, and you can't touch them. And you're trying to tell them how to line up that hole with the edge of their lip and the edge of the hole. And then, it's almost a nightmare when you think about it.
Yeah.
And then the kids at home don't have anybody else to model, because it's not like the roomies at least can look down next to them and say, okay, that girl's doing this, that boy's doing this. Oh, okay, you want me to do that? I mean, I could show them in a computer. I can show them on a screen. I can show them in a camera, but they don't have anybody else to look at. It's just them. There's no parents around. I mean, rarely is there parents around, which is okay. That's okay. Kids need to learn, but yeah, it's tough. That's tough.
Yeah.
You know, and I would hate. I was telling my student teacher this. At least he's a student teacher. He has me there with him. Imagine if you're a first year teacher and this is your first year.
Yeah.
In whatever subject you want, choose it. But imagine if this is your first year, you don't even know how to teach yet, much less online.
That's true.
So like I said, man, being in college, much safer right now.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. I have a friend who just started, he's starting his first year of teaching an orchestra job, and he's a saxophone player. So, and
oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's learning a totally different pedagogy, and he's do that online.
Yeah. So, but it seems to be going somewhat well for him, though. But,
yeah, we chose this year to only start. I usually start everything but percussion in 6th grade. But this year we only started with flute, clarinet, alto, trumpet, and trombone because we just couldn't figure out how to do 14 different instruments at one time on 2 different platforms, live and online.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it just got too overwhelming to think about what we had to do. So we chose to only me and Rick Rodriguez, who's my counterpart at Summer Hour Middle School. We teach everything together. We're just in 2 different buildings. So literally we teach those 5 instruments, but it's next semester. We're not sure what we're doing yet. We're still trying to decide, what do we do? Do we recruit more kids for attrition wise, because whatever we choose to do next semester will affect us for the next 6 years in our program.
Oh yeah.
All the way through high school. So it's really important that we do the right decision to see, what's going to affect us as a cluster, as a Norcross band cluster, because it's going to be very, very important that these kids go on. And then, of course, if they don't go on through Norcross and keep on playing all the way through Norcross, then who's going to go into the college bands? And 7 years from now, you're going to find college bands that are going to be much, much smaller because of what middle school teachers are doing right now.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, that is a really good point.
Yeah. So if we don't do our jobs correctly as middle school teachers and 6th grade beginners, high school teachers are going to have to start in 9th grade for some people just to get their numbers up, or we're going to have a beginner class, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade every year instead of developing their skills and making them better and better. We're going to start a beginner class every year just to have the numbers, because attrition wise, we'll have nothing by the time they're seniors if we don't do something about it now. And then you guys won't have a college band.
Yeah.
There'll be no freshmen coming in 7 years to college. So that's one of the things you think about it, let that hit you. And it's like, as a middle school director, we have such responsibilities. Because we're have to hook them. We're the ones that have to hook them and make them fall in love with the music and fall in love with their instrument. And if we don't do it the right way, there is no future.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty crazy to think about. It makes complete sense, but I hadn't really thought about it that deeply before. Wow.
Yeah, it is. And that's why I keep on people. Sometimes, I see it because I used to be a high school director and all this stuff. And sometimes you see people saying, you'd rather be a middle school director than a high school director. Isn't that kind of like a demotion? I was like, you don't understand. as middle school directors, we are more important, as middle school directors because of what we're doing. Hold on,
Right.
let me charge my thing here. One second.
Okay.
Yeah, I just got to plug it in. Yeah, because of what we're doing. Because if we don't start them right, there won't be a future. So
That's true.
we try. We're trying our best.
Yeah, I believe it. So what's what advice do you have for a new middle school band director who's starting fresh? Just
Right
like
now, the biggest thing that I can give any advice to, especially during this time, is to have a mentor. You cannot do this job by yourself. And typically there's only one band director in an entire school, whether it's middle school, high school, it doesn't matter. There's typically only one band director, but you can't do it by yourself. I mean, I'm in my 24th year of teaching, and yet I still have a partner in Rick Rodriguez over at Summer Hour. We start every morning with a Teams call, video call with each other, and we end almost every day. We end at 4:15, 4:20. We call each other again, and we talk about our plans for the next day or the week or our goals. It literally is a team, and that's the horizontal part. Talking to each other back and forth, and then the vertical part is I'm always in constant communication with Lee Newman, who's the high school band director at Norcross. Right. And so the vertical part is there too. And we're always planning and seeing, and he's always seeing how he can help us, me and Rick, at the middle school level. And seeing how it goes, because he knows how important it is that if Rick and I aren't successful, then he's not going to be successful, or he's going to have to work twice as hard to be successful. So we talk a lot. We're always communicating, but that's our cluster. Our cluster, we like each other. We're all friends,
right.
And so we work together very well. And I think that's the way it should be. And that's the way a successful program's build. But yeah, if it's the first year teacher, my biggest advice is to get a mentor that you can trust, that knows your program, and and that person's heart is in the right place. For helping you develop as a teacher. But that's the key thing, because if you don't have that, you might not make it. Because I've always believed it takes around 5 years to learn how to teach. It takes 5 years to learn how to teach. It takes you 10 years of teaching to figure out whether you can do it for a career. Wow. So 10 years of your life could ultimately be wasted if you're not sure if this is what you want to do. But it's going to take you 5 years to at least figure it out. To figure out how to teach. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's tough. Yeah.
And is there a piece of like pedagogical knowledge that you've learned over the years that you've used a lot, that has helped you a lot in teaching middle school band?
Which part?
Like, I guess in the way of helping students be better at what they're doing, at playing their instruments. Is there anything that you've learned over the years as teaching where you've used a lot since to help your students?
To help my student, it really depends on the kid. I know overall, though, across the board, if you want a kid to get better at their instrument, you give them confidence. If you build their confidence, it's not about the technique. It's not about what you teach them, and it's how you teach them. It's not about, my sixth graders can play 8 major scales in 1 minute. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But if you tell any kid, your high achievers, your low achievers, if you give them the confidence that they need to play that instrument and to learn that instrument and to fall in love with the sound, And to fall in love with, here's the other thing, if you give that kid enough confidence to trust that they trust you and they want to perform for you and themselves and they want to make people proud of them, you know, that's going to get a kid better. And no matter what he or she does, it doesn't matter about the technique and all that stuff. Because if I give a high achieving kid, and I give them the confidence to play their instrument, they're gonna learn those skills on their own. I ain't got to teach it to them. All I got to do is just point them in that direction. And then the low achieving kid who doesn't have that confidence, if I build that kid up and I'm like, okay, come on, let's do this, great job, yada, yada, yada. And we take those baby steps, then all of a sudden they start going, oh, I can play this. I can do this. So it's not about the technique. It's about the humanity of it and teaching them and being confident in them and being their cheerleader. And then that will break any pedagogical technique you can think of. That's not the technique part is not what it's about. It's building that confidence in the kid and the love. And then once they do that, they're hooked. Once you hook them, I've got kids that I'm like, hey, they'll do anything for me because I love them and I love them. They love me and they'll do anything for me. If I tell them to move the band room, they'll start taking down a brick and moving the band room, that's just the way they are. They're good kids.
Wow.
And they may not be the best, my first chair players, but they're just as important. There's a reason why second and third trumpet part. They're just as important as the first trumpet part, and you have to be able to convince that kid that plays third trumpet, you are just as important as first trumpet. So don't sell it out. And that's how your band gets better. It is. It's a team. I always tell my kids that it's a team. It's not just band. It's a team sport,
Yeah, definitely. Is there any, I don't know what kind of media you're involved, you like to do, like read or watch movies or stuff, but is there anything that that has inspired you, any like media that has inspired you lately, or just something that you'd recommend to other people?
For just relaxation or for work, or
I would say, how about a little bit of both, for musical knowledge and for relaxation.
musical knowledge right now. It's both inspiring and depressing at the same time. Is listening to music, like going on JW Pepper and finding the new music that came out and listening to what I could play with my kids. And it's like, okay, I think my kids could do this, and just exposing myself to new literature. And looking at scores online and stuff like that. And that's great. And I love it. And I get all motivated on it. In fact, my daughter was in the KSU university band. And this was last spring. So everybody was on COVID. And so she was home and she was recording a piece for her band director at KSU. And I saw it and I was like, oh, that piece is awesome. I love it. And I was thinking, maybe we can do this, yada, yada, yada. And I started looking at it and tried to, order the score, started doing score study and all this. And I still have it. And I broke it out. I took it out like last 2 weeks ago, something like that, and started looking at it, thinking, what can we do if LGBE comes around? And at the same time, the depressing part was, how are we going to rehearse this? We can't even get the kids to school. How am I going to do and that was the depressing part. And the realization hit me like, damn, we can't play this. I think it was the homage to Baccarat, something like that. I forgot what it was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was a cool piece and a lot of percussion in it. And, but listening to it I still enjoy it. I still like listening to the new literature and trying to see, what is right outside of my kids' abilities to expand their comfort zone, to make them better musicians and to let them exposed to better music and better literature. So it's fun. I have a good time doing it. at the same time, it's kind of depressing right now because we can't do it. We're just not allowed to do it. So then I back up and I'm like, I guess we'll just play, um, Jingle Bells down at the mall or something like that,
Yeah.
in small ensemble, and which is good too, because we got to
Yeah.
do that too. But at the same time, yeah, are preparing that kind of literature with the kids and showing how much fun it is to learn that kind of stuff. It's kind of depressing, for
That's
right
true.
now in the state right now. But it is important to not just listen to stuff like that and on the professional side, but it is important to have a down thing, or a relaxation to get your mind off of stuff. Mine is I'm an avid Lego builder, believe it or
Oh,
not.
nice. Yeah.
So yeah. Yeah, so I really like that, and it's just like building any kind of models, or whether it's wooden models or plastic models, or puzzles or whatever, just something to relax your mind, so you're not thinking about just enjoying it, and then just seeing a product at the end. It's still fun. It's still fun to me,
Yeah.
but something very, very important to have.
That's true. That is true.
Mhm.
Well, thank you so much for taking your time to do this interview with
Of
me.
course.
It's been great
Yeah.
to talk to you.
Yeah. You too, man. You too. All right, bro. I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Yeah, take it easy.
All right. You too. Bye.
Bye.